Be the change you want to see in the world. A true inspirational story. The man who planted a forest. For years, the residents of Versova, a suburb of Mumbai, India, had a simple relationship with their 2-kilometer-long beach. They avoided it. It was not a place for strolls or play. It was a vast, open-air landfill, a grotesque monument to neglect. Plastic bags, bottles, and wrappers formed dunes taller than a person. Rotting garbage and the skeletal remains of dead animals poked through the sand. The stench was overwhelming, and the only life it sustained was armies of disease-carrying rats. The ocean, choked by this tide of waste, would regurgitate more filth with every high tide. Everyone complained about it. Everyone blamed the authorities, the immigrants, the system. Everyone saw an insurmountable problem. Everyone, except one man. His name was Afroz Shah, a young lawyer who moved into a beachfront apartment in 2015 with a view of this dystopian shoreline. The sight from his window filled him with a profound sadness. He remembered the beach of his childhood, a place of sandcastles and clean waves. One Saturday morning, driven not by a grand plan, but by a simple, unbearable urge to do something, he walked onto the beach. He didn't have a team, a government grant, or a viral social media campaign. He had a pair of gardening gloves, a small sack, and 84-year-old Harbinch Mather, his neighbor. Under a blazing sun, the two of them began. They bent and picked. Bottle by bottle, bag by bag. 4 hours, they filled their sacks with the compacted, decaying waste. People watched from a distance, some with curiosity, most with indifference. "Why are you doing the municipality's job?" someone shouted. "You're wasting your time," said another. Afroz just smiled and continued. His back ached, his hands were cut, and the scale of the task was horrifying. At the end of the day, the tiny cleared patch they had made was invisible against the vast expanse of trash. It felt utterly futile. But he returned the next weekend. And the weekend after that. A curious thing began to happen. The sheer, stubborn consistency of his action started to chip away at people's cynicism. First, 2 local boys joined him. Then a housewife, bringing water for the volunteers. A fisherman saw them and, realizing the trash was destroying his livelihood, brought his entire crew. The act of complaining had been replaced by the act of doing. Afroz's mission evolved. He realized cleaning the surface wasn't enough. They had to stop the incoming tide of trash from the choked city creeks. He rallied volunteers to clean the nullahs, drains. They faced bureaucratic hurdles and fresh dumping every day. Yet, they persisted. They didn't wait for permission, they acted. The movement, now called the Versova Residents Volunteers, grew from 2 to 200, then to 2,000. Celebrities, students, lawyers, and fisherfolk stood side by side in the muck. They didn't just remove trash, they began to sort it for recycling. Then, Afroz had another idea. "We have cleaned the mother's skin," he said, referring to the beach. "Now we must heal her." They began to plant thousands of mangrove saplings, nature's perfect coastal defenders, in the cleaned mudflats. The work was Herculean. Over 85 weeks of relentless weekend cleanups, they removed a staggering 9,000 tons of plastic waste. Then came the miracle. In the summer of 2018, a volunteer came running to Afroz, tears in his eyes. Come to the water." There, on the clean golden sand that had been buried for decades, were dozens of tiny, perfect tracks. They were the tracks of olive Ridley sea turtles. The turtles had returned to Versova to nest for the first time in over 20 years. As Afroz and hundreds of volunteers watched in hushed awe, protected by a human chain of their own making, 80 hatchlings scrambled from a nest and made their perilous journey to the sea, guided by the moonlight on a clean ocean. The United Nations called it the world's largest beach cleanup project. They awarded Afroz Shah with their Champions of the Earth Award. But for Afroz, the real award was in those turtle tracks. The moral of Afroz Shah's story is not that one man cleaned an entire beach. It is that one man's decision to be the change started a chain reaction. He didn't wait for anyone else to fix the problem. He didn't start with 1,000 people. He started with one sack. His action was a question posed to the conscience of his community. If not me, then who? If not now, then when? Your world might not have a filthy beach. It might have a different kind of pollution, of negativity, of apathy, of injustice. It might be a problem in your office, your school, or your family. The lesson of Versova is this: stop waiting for the hero. Become the first volunteer. Pick up your first piece of trash, speak your first kind word, take your first small step. Your action, however small it seems, is a signal. It gives others the permission to hope and the courage to join. The change you wish to see begins not with a plea, but with a posture. It begins with you, bending down and picking up the first piece. If this story of one man and his gardening gloves inspired you, let's turn that inspiration into action. Like this video if you believe a single step can start a movement. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories that prove you don't need permission to make a difference. And please, share this video with your friends and family. Let's multiply this effort and be the spark for positive change together. Most importantly, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell us, what is the one piece of trash you will start with? What is the first, small change you will be in your world? Your declaration might just give someone else the courage to pick up their own. Remember, the world changes with your action, not your opinion. Don't wait for the crowd. Start the crowd. Be the change. We'll see you in the next video.